So the human groups were controlled by the cabal, and what they kept doing was they kept shooting down ships, which today, the crashed retrievals, well, they've been going on since, the late 30s. Late 30s they've been going on because they crash the ship, they steal their technology. Where do you think televisions come from? Televisions came from the ship because the ship had these monitors, the video monitors. And they back engineered the video monitors, and over years they've built the television, right? The telephone. Well, it has been a while since we have made a video. Hi, I'm back. I can't say it's going to be consistent as before, but hopefully we will get back into the swing of things, because there are a lot of things to talk about. I have a lot of things to say. And the reason, I should give you a reason, I have been busy. I have other projects. I do work. So there's not enough time. So I have to deal in the early goings of my speaking shamanic journey. I put everything aside in order to obtain the understanding or the truth of the situation or the full knowledge, because you can only get full knowledge if you apply yourself over a period of time, years. I never understood people who would, they would say that I had an incredible dream, I had an epiphany, I had a spiritual awakening. I took ayahuasca and I understood everything, because that's not the way it works. That's not the way enlightenment works. That's not the way, I forgot my... Silly me, I forgot my microphone. So 18 years, 206. 18 years going on 19. 18 years of talking. I've never used the microphone always yelling at the microphone, because the microphone back then, I had the camera, was very cheap. I had to yell. And I put the camera so far away. It's just a habit, right? You have to get into the habit. I'll work on it. Microphone next time. Enlightenment. Oh yeah, you'll notice something else. We're calling this, so the channel has a name, Stellan TV. And these videos are they were just meant, in the beginning, they were just meant to share the truth. That's, so many years ago, to share the truth. But, since the time I started, there's been an explosion of people talking and sharing, and they're formalizing it into podcasts, and everything has a name and a title and all the glitz and glamour, which we never had. And I'm still the wandering shaman, so to say. But there's something about being outside, something about the woods, the trees, the fresh air, the oxygen, the elves. that lends itself to kind of an unfiltered truth, tapping into a higher stream of knowledge or accuracy or self-awareness without the noise, right? But basically, there's less noise, and then you can focus on certain things, certain areas of knowledge. You can focus your thoughts, which is the sort of the side effect of life, and the reason why most people don't attain enlightenment, or a limited amount, is because life is full of noise, right? There are noises: your job, your customers, your clients, your families, your mothers and fathers, your siblings, your pets, and those could be overwhelming already, right? Because some families are very overwhelming, very demanding, very controlling. You have your spouses who could be very demanding, very controlling. And then you have your children, if you have children. That's your priority, right? That's more important than you until they get older, and then they become, get out. You are more important than me. Oh, how old are you? Get out. So all of that is the noise, which intercepts, blocks enlightenment. It blocks enlightenment. That's why people who are religious, they go to church. Church is a place of being quiet. When you go to church, she says, be quiet. Kids are not allowed to talk. There's a lot of prayer. There's a lot of there's a lot of quiet. If you go to the church, it's very quiet. Just like this forest. It's quiet. It's like a church. Isn't it? It's like a church. There's no people. The forest is my church. It's in that quiet where I can understand things, and I can share things, and I can talk. Which is not to say I can't do it in the noise, but this is a peaceful time. As a shaman, I like nature. Nature is is where I find my respite. Nature, water, beach, right? Ocean. Which is if you're following, that's where it's quieter. It's peaceful. And you're tapping into this quiet. So enlightenment in knowledge comes from places without the noise. So when I was in my early studies and becoming more knowledgeable and gaining the sort of the wisdom, I put everything aside. And I did it to a very extreme extent. I put everything aside in order to focus on the learning, the truth. And in my case, in my journey was to really dig deep, to delve into topics at a very profound level. And when I did that, I discovered things, and then I began another process of discovery, right? So for me, in my journey, there was a lot of discovery, a lot of research, a lot of time in the solitude to understand and dig into the truth, to obtain knowledge at the cost of dealing with a normal life where you're managing all the noise. It comes, as I said before, everything comes at a cost. There's a cost. There's a price. There's a sacrifice. And my work has led to the development of a lot of books. A lot of books with some very, I would say, illuminating discoveries that I have shared here and continue to share, and there's more to share. And, when somebody says to me, well, they had this epiphany and they had a spiritual awakening, which is nice. It's nice. But in my experience, I've had many, many spiritual awakenings, some extremely powerful and debilitating. When you have a very powerful awakening, you really taken out of yourself and you have to re-identify with your place in society. What's my place in society now that I know who these people are, what these people are doing, what the objective is, what the agenda is, right? And some of it becomes very clear, but you can't understand it all, or maybe you want some more facts, some more proof, right? So your awakening now leads to, I got to find out more answers. I got a lot of questions. I got more questions now. I don't know about this, right? And that awakening leads to the process of understanding and research, introspection. What is my role? Eventually, what is my role in society? Because, if you look at sort of the stories, you look at a movie and there's a danger, right? There's a threat. And then there's somebody who says, well, I'll be the hero and I will remove the threat at my cost. But in real life, we can't do that because, for one, there are too many threats. There's too many agendas. There's too many, and they're very big. They're very big agendas. So what's your role? That's the challenge. The challenge is, can I just close my eyes and forget about it? Which is what most people will do. It's not my responsibility. Look the other way. Some other people will engage at some level. Others will write books. And at the very extreme, key individuals will speak out and put their whole career at risk to their detriment, because their career will be destroyed and they will become a conspiracy theorist. Which is interesting because 20 years ago, a lot of people wanted to become a conspiracy theorist. They wanted to have some breakthrough, they wanted to have some breakthrough with their book and to show, I discovered this and I discovered that. That was one of the big things. Even 20, 30 years ago, there were people trying to crack the secret. What's the secret of life? What's the secret of God? What's the secret behind the aliens and the UFOs? The secret space program. Those all were the kind of the way society was educated to think that we have to uncover this and bring it to light. 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And then what's happened is that a lot of those people, once some of those topics came to light, their lives were completely destroyed. Some ended up in jail, some ended up dead, divorced, bankrupt, because the system the system would come after you. They don't like you talking about certain things. Certain things you can talk about, certain things you can't. In the early days, they would kill people. They would just eliminate them via accident, an intelligence asset. They pretend they have some alcohol, they're drunk, and they kill somebody as a drunk driver, but they're not drunk. They are drunk, but they're not a normal drunk driver. So accidents, anytime something happens to these people, something's going on. In my life, I have had numerous attempts to put me out of commission. This is going back in the beginning, when I started. When I started, there were numerous attempts to stop me, and they were very serious, dangerous, critical, and I didn't know if I would continue. I mean, it was basically, they want to get rid of you. And the people behind it were which was the cabal, essentially was the cabal, and their assets were very determined to get rid of me, even though at the time I had no voice. I was only starting out communicating, and I was communicating through various, chat rooms and online groups. But what I'm saying is I had very little knowledge, very little influence. And they came after me like I've never seen anything before. So the early part of my life, which is not documented, which I don't talk about that much, which was due to my awakening, because I was, in 2005, in December 5th, 2005, which is around the time we're talking now, I had my sort of the big awakening. But a lot of the stuff I had as an awakening, there were things, many things I already knew at a subconscious level. But there was this other filter, right? Persona that was interacting at the human level. So when I woke up in 2005, that filter kind of dissipated, and it could no longer be sustained. And so I had a fuller view of what things were going on, and I understood things. And when the cabal, who now we know, 20 years ago we didn't, when this cabal, and there was a cabal, came after me, they somehow knew this information. And again, this goes back to a lot of stuff I've talked about before in various videos. That even in the 60s, let's do a little history since we have time. In the 60s, there were agreements between the governments, the major governments, and the star people, various interstellar cultures. There were a number of agreements, and one of the reasons was that the militaries were shooting down their ships. And so that was interfering with sort of some of the work that these star people were doing, which was interacting with certain people or hybrids or star children, right? Star children. So they made arrangements that says, okay, listen, if you stop shooting down our ships, we'll give you some technology, right? And then they shot down more ships. Okay, listen, okay, we'll give you some more secrets of DNA. We'll give you some, weather weapon technology. Right? we'll give you medicine to cure diseases, all this stuff. So the human groups were controlled by the cabal, and what they kept doing was they kept shooting down ships, which today, the crashed retrievals, well, they've been going on since, the late 30s. Late 30s they've been going on because they crash the ship, they steal the technology. Where do you think televisions come from? Televisions came from the ship because the ship had these monitors, the video monitors. And they back engineered the video monitors, and over years they've built the television, right? The telephone, the television, missiles, climate weapons, all of this stuff has been either obtained through back engineering or through these agreements. Because not all of it you can back engineer. Sometimes they'll get a technology and say, how does this thing work? And so they shoot down a ship and they come down, okay, let's make an agreement. You tell us how this thing works, and then we'll let you do what you have to do. Okay? And there's a whole video on this, which I've discussed. Now, the issue was that the star people wanted to come down and speak to the star children or hybrid children, whatever you want to call them, crystal children. They've always been called star children as a kind of a generic, user-friendly term. And because the star people wanted to say, this is, this is what you're here for. This is who you are. We are your parents or your progenitors. And this is how things work. These are your gifts, right? Normal stuff. If you have a kid, if you have children and they're adopted and they have certain gifts, you want to reach out and say, hey, you want to keep an eye on them, don't you? I think it's totally normal. So the cabal didn't like that arrangement because then these children are going to grow up, right? And they're going to change things. They're going to do stuff they don't like. So the cabal says, listen, we'll let you contact these people, but you have to tell us who you contacted. So they got the names or the identities of those people as part of the arrangement. Again, because there was many things being agreed to, and this is like one of the things. So what does that mean? What it means is, even back as the 60s, the government, the secret programs had the identities of star children. Now, to somebody who doesn't know anything, and I'm hoping we're at a level now that we have a greater understanding. Because if you talk about this 20 years ago, people had a very limited understanding. But if you, with a greater understanding, you can see that the consequence of these cabal-controlled intelligence agencies or counterintelligence having knowledge of not only the identity, but sometimes having the sort of the DNA of these people. It's part of early agreements. So these people, these families, and this was going on now for this process. I think went on until the 2000. I think around 2005 when I woke up. So let's just say, just for arguments, just for the sake of argument, 1960 to, and it would, I think it would predate that, from 1960 to at least 2005. Let's say it's a 45 years, if my math is correct, 45 years at minimum that the star people were sharing the identities of star children to the government, the secret government, the cabal, the intelligence agencies, the secret agency, not to your local MLA office. Okay? There's a whole secret layer. There's the government, there's the secret government, and then there's all the alien stuff, which is way, way down here, which you'll never see or hear about. And that's because no one here can talk about the secrets because they're protected by the national security, right? You cannot reveal national secrets if you are here because you've sworn not to talk about national secrets. And if you share national secrets, then there are laws which can imprison you and they can destroy your life. So it's the, what's it called? National secrets, treason. It's called treason. If you're at that level, even if you're a government official, a politician, a senator who knows that's right, he knows about aliens. Publicly, he or she or they cannot admit it. In fact, they are obligated to deny it. They will say, well, that's the first time I've heard it. Or there's no evidence to prove that, even though they know full well what's going on. Again, for people who don't understand, just to make sure, and this is my opinion, they cannot say anything by law because they have signed into this national secrets, right? You have oath. There's an oath swearing that you will not share this stuff. You can't. And publicly, you can deny it. Legally, you can deny it, and you are still doing your job. That they cannot do anything to you if you lie in public on camera. The laws, right? The law says you can't talk about it. Legally, I can lie to your face and not talk about it. I can say I never heard anything about it. There's no evidence. You see all these politicians. There's no evidence, even though they probably have seen it. And they're doing their job. I'm just saying, they're doing their job, and they cannot say anything because their whole life will be ruined, and they will probably end up in jail for treason. It's very serious. The advantage to someone like me is that I've not sworn to any secrecy. I don't work for the government or the intelligence. I've obtained my knowledge from research and from the fact that I know these star groups. So I'm not sworn to particular secrecy with the star groups. In fact, they don't mind, the star group, they don't mind we talking about it because it helps people understand the true nature of the situation. So, where was I saying? So, before, what I'm getting to is that in 2005, I woke up. But long before I woke up, my name or identity was in a database because I had a strong connection to these star groups. So when I woke up, they knew about it and they came after me. I didn't know anything. You understand? Because the problem is, this is becoming a much bigger discussion. The issue was that, or the understanding was, that between let's say 1960 as just our kind of our we're just guessing, right? Let's just say for argument's sake, 1960 until 2005, 45 years. The understanding probably was between the star groups and the secret agencies was that we will share our presence with humans, right? Every year we'll share a little bit, and by within 40 years we will be present. We will be landing, right? Probably within 10 years. And then within, by 1970 there was another issue, right? The agreements didn't go so well. And the human groups wanted something else. And 1980, then there's war. And they said, well, it's not a good time to come down. There's a war. We won't come down if there's a war. And then the cabal says, well, why don't we have a war all the time? And then the ships will never come down. Why don't we have a crisis all the time? Why don't we create terrorists, disease, and then the ships will never come down because it's not the time. That's kind of the silly, the shorthand of it all was that the star groups believed that over a few decades they would have arrived and everybody would know that they're not alone. And that some of the children have sort of the stellar heritage. But what happened was that the cabal, they created all of these problems and issues, all of these demands that continued to stonewall and delay the landing, the visits, star visits, until such a point that it became impossible. So by the time I woke up, it's 45 years late. 45, there's a problem. There are a massive amount of problems. And not to mention all the disinformation, right? At the same time, these groups are communicating with the ETs. They're also going publicly and saying all aliens are evil. They're space monsters. They have a genetic programs. They are abducting people. They are probing, right? People, come on, I was probed. I was abducted and probed. In other words, there's a counterintelligence campaign which is on purpose controlled by the intelligence agencies. The Space Monster program. Demonize the enemy. Make people afraid of wanting to meet them. Which is now, there's another level. People are afraid of aliens. So between the human groups and the ETs who say, we're going to come down, we're going to meet. And then they say, well, it's not a good time now. There's too many wars. There's disease. We've got economic problems. And at the other level, they're slandering. They're demonizing the alien, evil alien monsters, space monsters. They eat people. They're stealing our genetic material. all of it was a complete lie. It's a complete fraud. Absolute fraud. Okay? Cattle mutilations, remember that? So when I woke up in 2005, not only did all of these groups know about me, but I had to get through all of this disinformation. Now, if anybody knows sort of, at 2005, the internet is still new. YouTube is just starting. 2006 was Twitter was just starting, and nobody liked Twitter. When it started, no one liked Twitter. I was on Twitter. I have an account on Twitter that goes back, way back then. And then you have, who was the social media? Social media had not started, right? Facebook was around 2006, 2005. It's still new. You know, you had MySpace. They're gone. So, in other words, there's the avenue to communicate, although was being born, was not developed. So I had to cut through all of this, these evil aliens, cattle mutilations, abductions, probes. Aliens don't use metal probes because, they can scan your body. They can scan your body just with their minds or with their hands or with the technology. They can scan it. They can scan it from the sky. They don't have to come down and stick a metal probe up your arse, because the only people who would do that was the MyLab. You got the MyLab. The MyLab would come down, dress up as aliens, as a gray mask, and they would rape people. And they would hypnotize them and say, "We are evil aliens, and we want to hurt you." Okay, where was I? So waking up. So when I woke up in 2005, I'm dealing with, decades of disinformation, decades of control, agendas, government agencies, and a lack of information, disinformation, lack of information. So luckily for me at that time, social media was opening up, and it took many years to cut through and communicate and share ideas. And my efforts have always been attacked or thwarted. And the thinking that if you wake up, you have an epiphany, or even if you meet the alien, it will be a life-changing event. It will open your eyes. It will affect you, but it will not be the be-all, end-all. It's the beginning. It's a beginning. It's a step. It's a point of contact, And so the enlightenment, the self-actualization, right? The spiritual awakening is a process. Anybody who knows that is a process. Anybody coming out of addiction, the process of coming out of addiction is like the spiritual awakening. It's a daily struggle. It's a daily struggle, one foot in front of the other, to understand the way things really are. And after a period of time, after a period of years, you get some understanding. And usually at that point, people will start to make a podcast or write a book or start talking about it. And that leads to further understanding, meeting similar-minded people, right? Which is also part of that, it's part of your journey. The podcast is part of your journey to greater understanding. Or the book. It used to be the book. Now it's the podcast. In fact, me making these videos was my way of understanding what I'm going through and sharing it with everybody. So there's a lot to talk about. There's a camera. Did we clean it? There is a lot to talk about. And hopefully we can do this on a more regular basis.